This is Attic to Basement Estate Cleanouts with raccoons. And we're going to try something different this week.
No raccoon.
With no raccoon. But I've got Cory Kallen, who's here visiting me from Florida. And I know her from networking up in the Maryland area. And she was a daily money manager. So, hi, Cory.
Hello.
I'm glad you agreed to sit down with me and talk to me about being a daily money manager and having your own business.
Okay.
So how did you get started and what's your background?
Okay. I'm going to start with the second question first. My background, I actually have, should have said before, I have a degree in social work, which I really didn't use, and I wound up getting a job in insurance. So I worked in various types of insurance, but mostly health, and also did investigations. So I did a lot of interviewing of people and whatnot. So I developed a lot of interview and people skills throughout the years. And what happened was my mother became sick with Alzheimer's, and throughout her illness, she was able to do less and less, and I had to take over more and more doing her financials and personal business and whatnot. And so I got a job working I left insurance and I got a job working in elder care. I started working at a nursing home, and then I worked at a senior residence where I did leasing of apartments, and occasionally people would have problems remembering things, how to do things. Sometimes it was just simple accounting, help write a check for them because they had physical problems. And I left that and went to work for a woman who was a care manager, and she wanted to add to her business, and so she hired me to do the bill paying and organizing, a lot of financial organizing and personal organizing as well. And so that's how I got started.
Oh, okay, great. And what type of people use a daily money manager?
There are an assortment of people. You have your busy worker bee who, is too busy to take care of their own bills. Sometimes it's even way back, or not so way back, but a lot of times people are getting their bills in the mail still instead of on the internet, having them emailed. And so a lot of it was sorting through to see what had already been paid, what was junk mail, and whatnot. And so what I would do is sit with the person and go through whatever stack they gave me. And each individual was different. They all had different needs and different quirks. So you had to work according to their pace. And so if I had someone was working, sometimes they wouldn't even be there. I would just get the key to their house, go in, sort through their mail, put their bills aside. Some of them wanted to pay their own bills. Some I would just write out the checks for them and leave it with the bill to sign and mail. When they get home, I'd have it all prepared. The seniors that I worked with, they would get overwhelmed with the amount of mail. They would see things and not know whether or not it was junk, if it needed to be paid. Some people had cognitive issues, and so they couldn't really tell what they were looking at. And some had physical issues. So I had one gentleman who had a stroke, and he wasn't able to write with his predominant hand, and he never learned to write with his other. So there's all sorts of circumstances, whether or not it's cognitive, physical, or you're a busy professional or traveling. And so you might have the need for someone to come in, sort through, figure out what's important, and keep your bank, your finances straight. Make sure you've got enough money coming in and going out paying your obligations and whatnot.
Yep. Okay. Are there requirements like a test that you take or a society that you join before calling yourself a daily money manager?
Yes and no. There is an organization, it's called the National Association of Daily Money Managers, and they've been around for probably close to 20 years now, started by a woman in the DC area who's since passed away.
Oh.
And now they have a certification program, and I'm not sure what the details, what the scope is. I never bothered to get certified for two reasons. One, I knew that I was going to be moving away from the DC area and giving up my business, retiring. And the other is, I don't feel that just because someone has a certificate, they're necessarily qualified to do the job. A lot of the job is simple math, you're adding and subtracting. But a lot of it is also common sense, and a lot of it is dealing with an individual who has cognitive or physical problems and knowing how to interact with them, how to make them trust you and feel assured that you can do the job. People can bone up and study to take a test and pass a test, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're good at what they do.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's a simple answer to it.
Like what I did too.
Right.
There really wasn't a license that the city or the state made me take.
Right. Ellen, there were no requirements by the state. You didn't have to be licensed. You didn't have to be insured or any of that. As far as bonding, a lot of people were under the assumption that you had to be bonded. Because I didn't have employees, I didn't need to be bonded, and I would try to explain that to people when they called, because one of the things they would always ask is, are you insured or are you bonded? And I would say, yes, I'm insured, so if I broke something in their house or damaged or injured them for whatever, I don't know how, but whatever way, I would be covered, but I wasn't bonded. And the reason I wasn't bonded is because a bond doesn't cover an individual, it covers a business. And since I didn't have employees, I didn't need it. And basically, being a sole proprietor, everything was really based on my honesty. So if I were to go in someone's home and steal, we had a large network there in Maryland, and so word would get around. Somebody would know, so-and-so stole something, and it's like, and you would never want to have your business ruined by taking something, and so I just never did. But I did tell people, if if it means a difference between working with you or not, if you feel more comfortable, I'll go ahead and get bonding. But once people understood that it wasn't necessary, we didn't do that. So.
Yeah. And my business, I just had liability insurance. I didn't have any employees either. They were independent contractors. And so I didn't have workman's comp.
People have to understand that.
Right. Yeah. And I think with yours, you had a different kind of insurance too, the errors and admissions?
I did not have errors and admissions. It was something that a lot of people had, but again, it was something that you'd really have to make some egregious type of error, and I didn't feel for the simple bookkeeping and accounting that it was warranted. I wasn't, with the exception of one client, I wasn't dealing with millionaires and their business. If I was dealing with a business, I would be more inclined to do it, but just for paying, people's
Comcast bill and
their routine bills and stuff like that, and their health insurance, there really wasn't anything. So I just never worried about it. I didn't feel as if it was necessary.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. All right. And what was your biggest challenge growing your company?
I would say part of it was networking, marketing. I would go to functions where seniors would be, and they would grab all the, pens and notepads and things that you give out, and they'd ask a few questions. But a lot of it was people, the seniors especially, they came through a lot of times geriatric care managers, because the care manager, somebody usually is one to recognize that the person has a problem, and so because of it, they make the recommendation that you have help. Anyway, I was not good at networking because in a group situation, I'm shy, and you and I belong to an organization called G.R.O.W.S, which was Grassroots Association of the Well-Being of Seniors, and so a lot of care managers were there, and I'd get to know them, but just kind of cursory. And so they never really got to know me and understand what my philosophy was working with people and everything. And so that was hard. And I also wasn't looking to grow a huge business. I didn't want to hire employees. I didn't want to worry about someone going in and mismanaging someone's funds. And I didn't want to have subcontractors working for me. So it was really a matter of what I could do myself without that.
Yeah, and I would meet the attorneys who would hire me directly. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, 3/4 of the time, I was working directly with the attorney. And so if we talked for a while and they felt I was honest and I didn't have two heads, then they would call me when they had a situation where there was no family to clean out the house.
Right.
And I found then that lawyers that didn't network, I would have to cold call them and just say, can I come in and meet you for 5 or 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, just so they could feel that, okay, this woman is honest, she doesn't look like she's going to steal the contents of the house, and then they would hire me. I then eventually did start to get some referrals from lawyers, and if one lawyer referred me to another lawyer, then I wouldn't meet them until I would go to do an assessment at the house. But yeah, in the beginning, probably the first 5 years, I had to cold call and network, and that was, the cold calling was hard. I always had to work myself up to that. I might have to talk myself into it for a couple of days before I'd actually sit down and make the phone calls.
Right. And the other thing I think is identifying who your target is. So it's like, working with working people, even the few people, they knew me through other means. So I did have a couple of commercial clients, and a lot of that was organizing as opposed to bill paying. And so it was a matter of setting up their businesses so that it was kind of ergonomically correct, so that they could kind of get through their day quickly without sorting through things and setting up filing systems and whatnot. So that was one way. And then leaving brochures out and belonging to different associations like N.A.P.O, the National Association of Professional Organizers, and belonging to the Daily Money Managers organization and stuff, so people could find you on there. And then sometimes it was local newsletters that we would have in the community, the Guide to Retirement Living and the resource book. Although showing up at different networking situations or things, say for seniors, since I specialized in seniors, it was difficult to necessarily have a one-on-one conversation with them. And a lot of times the networking that went on, or the face-to-face contact that you had with the people, the seniors were, say, taking a class, a seminar or something, and they'd be in that for 45 minutes, and then they'd have a 15-minute break or a 10-minute break until the next seminar that they're going to be in. And so they're running around to everybody, and you're competing against maybe 30 other people in a small room for them. And it was difficult. So I really should have spent, more time targeting maybe even attorneys. I don't know.
I was lucky in that when I started doing this, it was sort of a fluke through an attorney who needed it done and said, I don't know who I'm going to call to do this. And I said, oh, I could do that. So I really didn't have any competition the first 5 years, which was good. But then other organizers started to change over, and then senior move managers came into it, and so they were advertising that they could take care of that too. So there was more competition. There were probably 3 or 4 people in the area by the time I retired. But yeah, I really had the open field, which was good because and a lot of people would say, oh, I wished I'd known you. I had to clean out my mother's place last year. I wished I'd known you then. And so the advertising wasn't working as much for me as I knew I had to do the networking and meet people face to face. Okay, well, I guess that's it then. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. It was interesting.
Sure.
And hopefully my viewers will, think about becoming a daily money manager if they
Right.
don't want to do a estate cleanout business.
Right.
That's it for today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
See you next week. Thanks, Cory.
Bye.